on?
Listen, we only have intelligent conversation in this room, okay?
I've been on for 12 minutes listening to this gibberish.
All right, so listening to this gibberish, what trades did you make in the last 12 minutes?
None. I've been a very good boy.
Oh man.
Very good boy.
How about
There's times to just keep your hand off the mouse, right?
Yeah, I wish I did that more frequently. Gee, it's a $60 a week into gold, $65 a week. I wish I'd say I had all 65 in my pocket, but that's okay. That's okay. We will get our moments, as Judd wrote today. Wait for that $25 break. It'll come. It'll come. But I see that everybody's picked up. I read that. You know, I get Seeking Alpha sent to me, but I only read two people on there, Mark Grant, and I'll read Heisenberg's stuff. But basically, it's like he was sitting in the room the other day because his whole piece was about the dollar funding crisis. He's not the only one, but it's really gained traction. I think that's why the gold has really found its way, because these idiots, they don't understand it. Well, they don't understand it. I just read Richard Claren's speech. Then I realized after I read it, I go, who the hell is he speaking to? Oh, University of Chicago Booth School students. Not that they understood what he said. I guarantee you.
Yesterday, Ira, didn't he say he doesn't, so far they don't see any reason for any rate cuts? I thought that's what he said yesterday.
Yeah. Well, you know what? Again, it really reflects, that was that CNBC interview, and I didn't watch it live. I wish I did, but I was busy doing something. More importantly, they didn't ask him anything about all the work he did last year. In fact, I wrote a comment on the CNBC site where they posted the interview. I go, wait a minute, you did all this work on the importance of the dollar and the Fed's reaction function to the dollar last year. He gave 3 or 4 speeches started in April, and not one question was asked to him, so he didn't go there. But that's not on him. That's, of course, on who was it, Kernan and Andrew Sorkin.
Look, we all know the Fed operates on a severe lag.
Well, yes and no. Again, I'll take you back to when Soc Gen was in trouble over Martin Luther King Day back in, I think, 2008, in which that was the thing with the Jerome Curviel when he got stuck in the equity markets. And the Fed came in and cut interest rates 75 basis points on Martin Luther King Monday. So, they can, when they perceive, and the sad part is they're not perceiving here. And it just shows to me they don't really have a clue. They don't. I hate to, because who am I? Who am I to say that? But, I've been working at this a long time. And if all your discussion, and it's the discussion of Clarendon today too at the University of Chicago, is on inflation, you're staring down the barrel of a gun here, especially because the dollar, as we've talked about, has ripped, although today it's come off pretty good. And that's because you've had, Judd and I kind of chatted back and forth this morning, because you're having some compression in the yield differentials, of course, because, you got the 10-year down to, I don't know, what's the latest level. You got the 30-year at all-time lows. And that's, so much of this is as the dollar moves up, the markets are telling you that, hey, if this dollar keeps going higher, you're going to really wind up in a difficult situation. Again, it was, the new director at the IMF, she caught it perfectly because they're loaded to the gills in dollar debt. You're loaded the gills of dollar debt. That means you have dollars to repay. The dollar's going higher. Your costs are going higher. Your costs are going higher. You either have to sell more goods or just start liquidating goods in order to raise cash to be able to meet your debt payments, because there's a lot of debt coming due, corporate debt in the emerging market worlds. Well, and they keep talking about the coronavirus, and they, and now they're giving it, a little bit more weight than they even were before. So, I just don't understand. Can you not be flexible? The Fed has a history of being flexible. For God's sake, Paul Volcker raised interest rates when he wanted to stop inflation 2% on a Saturday night before Saturday Night Live came on. Please, you know what? There is. I can't discuss it more. But just in case they needed to see it, as we've talked for now days, months, weeks, the gold is telling them, but they're not even astute enough to pay attention to it. It's just another barometer. But the gold has been pretty good signal here, and again, Judd puts out, and we talked about the gold euro, the gold yen, the gold yuan, the gold pound, the gold Canada, the gold Aussie. You run them, so and the dollar will come next. Even though it's not made all-time highs, those things are screaming, and they're telling you. And the Japanese had confirmed it again this week that they don't know what the hell they're doing either. And you saw it with the movement out of Japan. And as we let's go back to Dave from Czechoslovakia, because he was all over that, right on target. And you saw it because and that was before the big move in dollar yen. That was just the beginning of it. So kudos to Dave. And the crosses picked it up, but that is just money flowing out. The pension funds have always had this power that if they really start buying foreign bonds in an effort to find some greater returns, and if they're buying it unhedged, they're looking for a much weaker yen. We'll see, that can become problematic, but right now that seems to be the tilt for Japanese investors. Like, I got to get out of here. Nothing good is happening, and if this coronavirus really picks up speed, the growth story that would have taken place in the first two quarters, coming on the back of tourism and the expected stimulus from the Olympics, if that doesn't occur because tourism turns down because of the fears of the virus, and that's what that's telling us, money has to go somewhere to try to seek a return. I mean, zero rates, they're not doing it for me, regardless of what Her Eminence Lael Brainerd had to say this morning about capping, or yesterday, capping, no, it was today, capping long-term rates. Please, give me a break. Because capping, her efforts at capping long-term rates, which is what the Fed did following World War II, the Fed and the Treasury got together, and, the Treasury, I should say the Fed had to bite the bullet, Treasury was pushing for it. It's really MMT in another form, nothing more, nothing less. And the metals are onto it now. So you want to talk about it? The gold jump, as she talked, more than a few dollars. They get it. And the gold market understands the central banks really have no answer here. And you're at less than zero rates on an amalgamation of the large central banks. So that's where we sit. And it's not to say that gold is just Judd's right. Gold may just hit a ceiling here. But I'm gonna put this forth to you. I'm gonna ask this question. And don't anybody touch their computers. When gold was here back in 2013, February of 2013, because last time we visited was 7 years ago, where was silver? Come on.
A lot higher. $10 higher more.
What's your price? Higher is not an answer.
Wasn't it in the 30s?
29.50. Very good. So and again, I'll come back to that point we made the other day. A lot of this has to do with central banks stockpiling gold. And I'm not talking about the Fed. I'm not talking about the ECB. I'm talking about other central banks. They're really having an impact on the amount of gold in the world. So it will be interesting. But I throw this out there merely for conjecture because of the news out of Argentina, of course, and the IMF may have to actually, they're the senior creditor in that game. But if they have to eat some losses there, listen to conversations about selling some of the IMF gold, okay, to rebuild their stockpiles. Now, of course, I wouldn't sell it. You know what? In unison, you should all put my answer to that, which is don't sell the gold. What should you do with it?
Turn it into gold-backed bonds.
That's right. Turn it into gold-backed bonds. Raise the cash. Let the bond buyers fund you at about 2.5%. In today's ridiculously low rate yields, hold on to the gold. But we'll see. But I promise you, somebody will come up and start talking about it soon. And I will tell you, I like this woman who's the new director of the IMF. Finally, somebody who can think outside and it's not a proverbial box, it's a genuine box that these, great academics who find work in a make-work program at the IMF. And I know if there's people who work at the IMF, like my good friend Carl Weinberg from High Frequency Economics, as he got really angry at me years ago because I've been poking at the IMF for so long because they're a cookie cutter approach to solving the world's problems, which is they solve nothing and only exacerbate problems. So I'm kind of enjoying reading her stuff and where she wants to take each country on an individual basis. Very important.
Well, Ira, you need to send your stuff to Maduro because obviously he never got the memo.
Who did?
Maduro never got the memo from Venezuela. He's just backdooring it to Erdogan.
You know what? I feel so sorry for the Venezuelan people. Again, political arrogance, starting with Chavez, and they all have good intentions. But you know what? They're no different than the academics who run the Fed. Everybody just digs in their heels. And sometimes when political power digs in their heels, the effects are just much more drastic. That's all, and the blood. But as I want to say, more blood and treasure has been spilled following the ideas of dead academics who have been wrong for so long. And it's not that listen, I give Marx a lot of, Marx was really a great critic of capitalism, and if people would bother to listen, the system would be that much better and stronger. But, you draw lines, and that's the way it is. And when there are good criticisms that really should be directed to improving the system, that's not a bad thing. Pay attention, because we keep following our ways and making the same mistakes over and over and over again. But another discussion. But they're all good. Yeah. Again, you can never be wrong. And I think that Xi is suffering under it right now too, but he's trying to learn how to be a little bit more flexible because this viral situation is. Good leaders learn from these things. Let's see if he'll learn. It's no different than a bad corporation where the CEOs or chairmen don't want to hear any bad news, so nobody brings them any bad news. And if you don't get bad news, you can't correct mistakes. If you can't correct mistakes, you're eventually going to keep repeating the same things over and over again, and you're going to run any good business into the ground. Anybody who runs their business.
That's what he's doing.
Yep. Well, he was, but let's see. I think you know what? Some wiser heads may be prevailing around him, and we'll see. This has got more to play out. Now, you know, we'll come back to the virus because when I talk to intelligent people in the world of science, they liked the ship that was in Yokohama because that was a laboratory in which to study. And of course, when they let a lot of these people out, they break down the test tube nature of that. Unfortunate for those people, but again, if I was Donald Trump as president, I would have said, okay, we'll contribute $50 million to alleviate some of the pain of these people on that ship, and we'll pay them for their time lost and whatever the number was. It's not even a rounding error in the budget of the United States. It's not a rounding error. I can go find, and I would have paid these people to make them into a giant petri dish, and you would have gotten out in front of the world. You know, they don't do it. It's just sometimes you wonder what people think about. But scientists really like this because they get a good look. Now, yes, the virus is spread there, but again, only, and when I say only, it's not that I don't feel the humanity of it. I'm speaking in the scientific term. Only 2 people have died, and they were both over 80. So there's a lot of information in that. There's a lot of information in that. You know, as Stalin famously said, 1 death is a tragedy, 1 million is a statistic. And that's not an easy thing to say, but when you think about it, you go, you know, when you look upon the world, unfortunately, he's right.
Yeah, Holocaust.
Yep.
So, I mean, and we don't know where this virus is going. We really don't. And again, China bears the responsibility. Sorry, Mike, but I think you'd agree with me because their lack of transparency at the onset of it created even greater problems because the unknown is worse than the known.
I think it's because they're guilty. That's why.
Yeah.
That's why they've been keeping it underground.
It's
a
a fair
for so long.
Right. You know what, Mike? That's right. It's like with the Russians. They've lived, people, and I know you'll attest it, when you live in the shadows so long, you become comfortable in the shadows.
Right. Just like Chernobyl, right?
Yeah. Very much like Chernobyl. But think about that. That was 35, 36 years ago, or maybe a little less. My date's 87, whatever. I think 87, so 33 years ago. Right. But the world has changed. Just like Hong Kong was never going to be Tiananmen Square. Never. The world is a different place. The world is a different place.
People have much more to lose than 1989.
Yes, absolutely. You know, and you know, when I read, you know, Dung's response to why they had to do it, and I'm speaking now again more as a political scientist than as a human being because you have to separate yourself. But China was in a different place. The world was in a different place. The Berlin Wall was coming down. And the Chinese party was not in a position to start relinquishing any sense of its authority and allowing 100 flowers of freedom to bloom. They were not in that position, so they crushed it. Hong Kong, a different situation. But Hong Kong, to me, Mike, is always a sideline anyway. The real issue was, is, and will be Taiwan.
Yep.
But that's where we lie. And again, it's not if the Fed or anybody else comes, it's not because of the equity markets. Everybody's so used to that. It's a dollar funding crisis. I said it the other day. I said it the previous time I was on. This is a dollar funding crisis. That's why I was calling for a 50 basis point cut 2 weeks ago. And with it saying it's an emergency cut, it will be rescinded as soon as we really know the economic fallout on a global basis, not just the U.S., because the Fed has a different role here. If you're not going to cut, then make all the money available that any of these emerging market financial systems need on these swap lines and open them up. And it'll be the same thing. You'll see short-term interest rates drop dramatically. But an announcement of a cut in an effort to head off any of the impact would be a far larger statement.
Does that mean the yield curve is going to get flatter and more inverted?
No, I think if they actually did the right thing, the curve would start to steepen, which is another point that they should wake up to. They can't be happy what they're seeing here. They cannot be happy.
But how would they do it if they, lower interest rates? I mean, are they gonna keep the long end steady and just hammer the short end? Because that's what the people are buying, the long end.
I know, but if you hammered the short end, again, I'm not sure that the long end would rally much. And again, I'd wait for 24 hours to see what long rates did in order to test the theory. But I've seen this. Again, I've seen this in real time. I paid a dear price for it in Britain when there were 4 cuts in a row, and I was long the gilts, and all they did was go down because the market felt that those cuts were unnecessary, and they thought that they would be somewhat inflationary, so they didn't buy the long end. Then we bought the short end. I actually wound up losing money on 4 straight cuts in the UK in the late 1980s.
Oh, that's why, because it's inflationary.
Yeah.
The cuts are inflationary.
But Mike, if you go look on QE1, the yield curve steepened dramatically. It was the short end that was moving, and the long end didn't partake. In fact, the long end yields were steady to higher at the commencement of QE1, and then even with QE2, and then once the market, felt the impact of all that asset purchasing by the Fed, then the long end started to collapse. But at first, no. In fact, I don't have, you're not, if somebody's got access to it, show what the yield curve did. It steepened dramatically when QE1 started and QE2.
All right. Ira, here's Jeff's wife is from Taipei, reads the Taipei Times every day. But to Ira's point, how is the issue going to be forced?
Which issue?
Well, I think this whole thing with Taiwan. Jeff, you want to clarify that, or you can turn on your mic and speak and ask the question.
No, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah. So Ira, I have a lot of family in Taipei, although I live near New York City. And you kind of said the main thing with China is about Taiwan, not Hong Kong.
Yeah.
And I'm just wondering your thoughts and feelings on how China would force the issue or what you think is going to happen there over time.
It's good. Let's talk about this. It has nothing to do with, this will not happen with market action because you never know when this event is going to come to the forefront. Okay. But if you go back to 1971, 72, when Nixon first went to China, and what China was instilling, the People's Republic anyway, of a one China policy. And you know what? And Kissinger being Kissinger and Nixon being, it was kind of a nod and a wink, and nobody really, it's never gone discussed. But the question always was, from a political science standpoint, and this is just purely an academic discussion, is would the United States risk a thermonuclear war to keep Taiwan independent? Okay, that's always the question that exists, and I don't care.
I really don't think so.
Yeah, well, I agree with you. So how do we force the issue? And the Chinese have always played with this anyway. If we go back to the 50s and we look at the Taiwan Straits, when the Chinese used to, send artillery at Quemoy and Matsu in an effort, to shake things up in the Taiwan Straits, they know what's there, and it's not at their, it's not in their interest to really shape it up. But people were getting all bent out of shape on Hong Kong, and I said, no, it's really not an issue. And I don't know whether you watched that interview with Neil Ferguson interviewed Kissinger, and they talked all about Hong Kong, but not a word about Taiwan. And that was a recent interview, I think in November. And I thought that was very disingenuous, because Ferguson should have been pushing Kissinger on Taiwan. We should have been discussing Taiwan, because what does the United States see there? Where are we going? How far will we go? Will the Chinese press this claim? And so now, let me read to you from, hold on, if I say, do you know who Yi Tiankai is? Tiankai? The Chinese ambassador to the U.S.?
Oh, yeah.
In a recent South China Morning Post article, I'm quoting him. This is about a month ago. The bottom line on the Taiwan issue is the one China principle. There is only one China in the world. Both Taiwan and the Chinese mainland are part of China. China's sovereignty and territorial integrity should not be violated. So that's the only reason, so the issue will always be out there until, of course, it gets resolved in some capacity. How, I don't know. And I always hope it'll be peacefully and amicably. And of course, as China rises in the world, I'm always reminded of what Deng Xiaoping said, which is, hide your power, bide your time, and basically, stay removed, stay low and don't exert yourself. So that's the only reason I bring it up, because this could happen 20 years from now. It could happen 1 year from now. There's a different timeline to it. So it's only, I only bring it up because when people get bent out of shape about Hong Kong, you know what? Actually, the Hong Kong, as much as it was really resolved in a pretty peaceful manner, especially relative to Tiananmen Square. And that's a good thing. It's a good thing. But as Mike rightly pointed out, when you compare SARS to the coronavirus, it reflects how the world is changing and how China is changing with the world and how it will react to the world. Yeah, and that's important. It's important for how we learn to diagnose these events and then try to anticipate what the reaction function is going to be and how it will react upon markets. Otherwise, honestly, as a human being, I care, but I don't get overly emotional about it. But I'm sorry, I'm Jewish, and where I used to get very emotional about the Holocaust, it bothers me beyond anything that you can understand. But at the bottom line, if you look at it through a very analytic lens, it was really all about the confiscation of wealth. The Nazis confiscated all that wealth wherever they went. They stole it, they reappropriated it, they handed out jobs. And if you look at it in a very cool, calculating way, it gives you a different reaction function. And that's all I strive for in regards to this, because it's all relative to the ability to try to turn this into profitable trades. And that's never to diminish the humanity of it. I will never diminish it. Believe me, I lost more family than you can even imagine. But when you step back and then try to put it in the perspective of what I do to make a living, you become more analytical about it. But it doesn't detract my humanity. I know that's a difficult road to hoe, but it's the only way that I can operate and still be, you know, and try to fathom the best trading strategies.
I think, yeah, I think, Ira, what you said is really important and detrimental to a trader, to isolate yourself from what's happening or how you feel about it.
Yeah, right. That's right. I know it's not easy because we're all human beings and we all feel and we all, you know, it's like
it takes the humanness out of us.
Right.
It reduces
right.
us to numbers. That's what. That's
yeah,
what it is.
it does. It does. You know, it's all part of it, and that's what we're looking and searching for. Is to find that way. And you know what? Actually, this room's been pretty good. I have to tell you, I know, and it's not by anybody's P&L, but I know from the conversation that everybody's kind of got on this train pretty good and seeing it and not fighting it and going, well, these movements are afoot. You know, we don't need Ron and Sonny to come out, you know, after 4 years and tell us, you know, about bonds and gold when he's been one of the, you know, people who, it's an inflation, it's an inflation, it's an inflation. No, it's not. No, it's not. No, it's not. And here's why.
Ira, we want them to think that it's inflation, okay? Because we need some
right.
knuckleheads to trade against.
You know what? That's you're so right. You know, that's right.
Okay.
We need a
I don't want consensus old wall to go away. All right. We need them there.
Thank you. You're right, because that's the way that they see the world, and that's what they're selling. And you know what? Again, this has been a phenomenally important week because we've seen the breakdown of long-held correlations, which have been mechanically driven by the algorithms, which are mathematically trained to find these correlations and push them. This has been a bad week for pushing correlation.
Yeah, well, your buddy Chucky, what, after the Bank of Canada intervened against him the last time he lost all that money, he said, I'm done with currencies? I mean, how much money did he make his first week trading stocks because it was easy against those guys?
I don't know. I have no idea. You know, we really don't talk markets when we talk, and I never heard him say that, so that's interesting. He told you that. I didn't know that. But listen, so then you learn to adapt, as we're trying to do, and seize the opportunity when they come in and they push these correlations and find opportunity in there. Because this PAX, that's all we care about. Go ahead and push. I don't care. This is not a battle of egos. Hell no, you guys. Absolutely not.
Yeah. No, we go at it all day. It's okay.
Because as the great Frank DeVono, may he rest in peace, always taught me, if you come to the exchange floor with a big ego and a lot of money, you'll soon leave with a big ego. And it's true. It's true.
I mean, it's okay to be competitive, all right? But I think you're distinguishing between having a competitive nature and a big ego.
Well, nothing was more true than that guy that came from that huge T-bill trader from New York, that cash trader.
Oh, yeah.
One of the biggest guys in the world. And he lost 14 million in what, 3 to 6 months.
When that was a lot of money.
Yeah, it was a lot of money then.
Ira, actually, can you mind if I, since you mentioned the Holocaust and whatnot, it prompted a question that I've had for quite some time. It's probably more political than anything else, but I'm just wondering, you know, what your thoughts might be. Liberal Jews seem
No,
to
I'm not-
me.
I'm going to cut you. I'm not going to. That's a minefield of discussion, and I'm not going to have that.
All right, no. What I mean is they seem to not care about Israel, and I was just wondering, like I have trouble understanding that, and I was just, I was just wondering.
That's a path fraught with danger, and I don't even have it when I can't even discuss this with the people you're talking about because they get bent out of shape. So there is nothing good going down that path for me. Whatever I believe and feel, I feel. With certain people, I can discuss it, but certain people, it's just off bounds because it just is. Because, it's a historical event, which is fine. You can see it. It is a historical event. And that's where I let it lie. There is no good way around that discussion. And most people I have that with are not honest enough. So if I only discuss things with people who can discuss things open and honestly and are not so tied in. Again, if you turn certain things, it's like Keynesian economics. If you turn it into a faith-based thing, you have no chance. Because even Keynes was not faith-based. Well, Keynes' famous comment, when the facts change, so do I. That's why Keynes was such a great macro trader. Of all the economists, he was a great trader because he was flexible enough and as good, as theoretical as he was, when things change, as a good scientist, you can't keep, when the data comes back and tells you you're wrong, you can't keep holding on to the same theories over and over again. You can, but what are you waiting for? It just doesn't. That's not science. I'm a big believer in Max Planck, which is science advances one funeral at a time. Well, you know what? Good trading advances one funeral at a time. Because we can come up with ideas. If the ideas don't have any merit, meaning they're not investable because you're not generating a positive return, let them die. Next one. So it's a very similar. I know, but it's true. You got to be flexible and willing to change. People who who hold on to every view like it was life and death for them. They take their work, their personal beliefs, and they turn it into almost a religion ideology.
Yeah. Danny Kahneman might call that anchoring. The heuristic called anchoring. Daniel Kahneman.
Yeah, that's right. What does Daniel Kahneman? Thinking fast and slow. And what does he say the real sign of intelligence is? The ability to change your mind and adjust. People don't get it. I tell, go read Kahneman. I said, you promote all this crap, but go read the people who are actually thinking about this. Tversky and Kahneman and what's his name? The Winner's Curse. Richard Thaler. Go read these. The importance is to be able to be flexible enough and change. And you know what? I have to say, I've been in this room now, this is one of the strengths. And I hear it in the conversation. So certain things I do know. And most people I know, in fact, all people I know who are successful have the ability to change and adjust. You can hold on to whatever you believe as it was the gospel, but you're not going to really do well.
Yeah, I mean, who knows? 6 months from now, we might be shorting gold. Who knows?
Hey, I hope so. I hope the world is in a far different state, that the central banks have actually learned something, and I hope so. Oh, in the greatest way I can ever hope, I hope so.
And bonds and the dollar.
Yeah, that's right. Because You know what? Because then all would be
Look,
right.
I'm long all this shit, all right? But at some point, I'm going to be short all this shit.
That's right. As you should be. And you know what? It's a nice statement about the world because, again, people say, oh, you're a gold bug. No, I'm not. But I open up my eyes and see the world. I don't believe in central banks. Okay? So and I will tongue-in-cheek say, oh, you're a fiat currency bug. And they'll go, huh? I go, well, you believe in the almighty dollar. By what measure do you believe in the almighty dollar? You believe in it now because it's an acceptable means of exchange. But is it an acceptable store of value? I know that it's an acceptable means of exchange, but is it an acceptable store of value? Now let's have the discussion, but they don't want to. Everybody wants to pick where they want any discussion to begin. Everybody has a timeline. Everybody has yes.
Sorry to interrupt, but I want to touch base with you about digital currencies that the central banks are has been wanting to push, or in China there's already quasi digital currencies that they use WeChat Pay and Alipay. So, do you think this is a slippery slope going down?
Yes, and this will be my last question I deal with. Yes, I'll say what I've always said, and it's been consistent for the last 5 years. I didn't invest in Bitcoin to my own chagrin because I don't trust the digital currencies because I know that the governing authorities do not like competition. Now, that actually was borne out with the attack upon Zuckerberg's attempt to begin Libra, which when I read about it, and I read the white paper, I said, they're going to kill him because he wants to go down a slope. And if you read the Constitution, for everybody who wants to be a constitutionalist, who has the right to print money in the United States? It's not Zuckerberg. It's Congress. And that's in the Constitution. So the governments do not like competition. When it's not having much impact, you know what, let's see where this goes. But if it were to really get traction, they have to shut it down. And they'll shut it down under the guise just the same way that the United States began putting tariffs on. Anybody remember what the initial kickstart was to the tariffs?
I'm too young for that question.
National security. The initial tariffs were increases on steel and aluminum under the guise of 232 of the Trade Act of 1962 under the Kennedy round, and that's what they invoked. And I wrote blogs about it. This is always dangerous. When you invoke national security, the umbrella of national security, it gives the executive branch far too much power. Way too much power. And this is what will go. I mean, they can go after this whenever they want. Right now, they're all tinkling with it. Now, the Russians have talked about that they're developing a cryptocurrency with a gold back to it. I'm not sure how they're going to do it, but that's what they're talking about, which is actually interesting because now it's not really a cryptocurrency; it's just an electronic currency. So there'll be electronic rubles with a gold backness to it. It'll be easy to transfer, and it'll be somewhat of an opposition to the dollar. So there's a lot of things going on out there, Mike. Which wins out, I can't tell you. But just as you saw with Libra, governments do not like competition. They're monopolists.
Right.
Right.
I think that's the the main reason why Chinese government is going after Jack Ma and Alibaba.
Oh yeah, I agree with you, 100%. You know, Jack Ma, when he towed the line of the government, was doing well, but he kind of got like some of the Russian oligarchs. You know, you start to get worth $1 billion, $2 billion, $3 billion, $4 billion, $5 billion. You start to think yourself as a little bigger than you are.
Well, like
And we saw what happened.
Khodorkovsky, you know, now I have a line and I want to make a statement.
Right. And we saw what happened with that. And Putin used Khodorkovsky as the example, going, okay, you guys have you've been allowed. We've allowed you to make this much money. Stay out of politics. And whether you like it or not, that's just the way it is. Or otherwise, I'll take your money away.
Yeah. What did he have left? 250 million stashed in some Swiss bank accounts, under his wife's name. The rest of it was gone. 10 billion.
Yeah. You know what? And the last time I checked, it's tough to enjoy 10 billion with a bullet in your brain. It's a tough thing to enjoy. So,
and what's worse, he had his own jet. All he had to do was keep on flying.
Yeah, but Putin warned him. He warned all the oligarchs.
Yeah, he told them not to do it.
You stole the money. Okay, let's be honest. This was all stolen wealth. It was done under the watchful eye of, the Yeltsin organization, because these were people. And you know what? Okay, it's really no different than the robber barons in the United States. You know, the United States history mirror. Judd, you know better than anybody. Go look at Newport, Rhode Island.
Oh yeah.
You want to see the Gilded Age in America? The robber barons. It's really no different than what went on with the kleptocracy of the oligarchs. That was far more severe, but it was a much more. That was a political upheaval.
And who had all the gold? It was the Rockefellers and all these other guys that shipped it all out of the United States.
Yeah, well, listen, they made tons of money off the railroads, off the land grabs, and everything else. This is not new stuff in history. I laughed because the oligarchs are really no different than the robber barons. And you know what? The United States, once, especially under Teddy Roosevelt with the trust busting, and I happen to be a fan of Teddy Roosevelt, and he broke them up and he busted them up and he went after them. And a lot of them, some were smart enough to be able to adjust, and others, wanted to fight it. Not a good thing. Not a good thing. Because the power of the government, even in the United States, it can really do you some severe. It can cause you. Let me say this: can cause you some severe discomfort. All right, I'm going to close it up for the weekend. I'm going to probably put out a long blog on Sunday night, I think. I got some stuff to write about. Covered a lot of ground. And I hope that this room had a really good week trading, because that's ultimately what it's about. You don't need to hear me just pontificate. And again, questions, because if we get the questions, we'll ferret out really good trading ideas. And then the technicals will stand behind it and you'll be off and running. So I think that's what the idea is, and to see what we can generate as good trading ideas.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Ira. I mean, everybody had really good weeks. They all caught the short side of the SPOs. They caught the long side of the gold. The long bond trade. So everybody was on it. Good.
That's because that just comes from ferreting out these ideas. And again, the more you push back at me, the better the ideas get, because my ideas you may go, hey, that's just stupid. And I'll go, you're right. Wow, why am I pursuing that angle? So.
Yeah, and now you got an ORL week in NASDAQ bonds, and is that real?
Yep.
I mean, that's the one that sticks out. It's Apple and that, to me.
Well, and I'll come back to where we began the conversation, I think earlier this week, which was the failure again of the S&P bond to go and make new highs.
Yeah.
Man, this has been a torrid week in that.
Well, we've had a listed target in the S&Ps at 3,400 forever. The high is 3397.5.
Yeah.
On a Wednesday.
Yeah, unbelievable. So, very good. Thanks.
Right
for,
there.
Thanks, Ira.
for taking the time. I'm sorry.
Thank you.
All right. We'll talk to you. Thanks, Mike. Good questions. Good questions from who is at New York whose parents are in Taiwan?
So, Jeff.
This is Jeff. Yeah. Thank you, Ira.
Yeah. Quick. Hey, Jeff, you know, it's never an easy discussion to have, but it's a worthwhile discussion.
Yeah. It's just, I really love Taipei and the country.
I certainly understand. And what we'll say, this could play out for 50 years. Doesn't matter. The world is shifting all the time. So we'll see. You know, the only thing stagnant is people's thinking. The world is always in motion, as we see. All right. Talk to you guys.
Thanks, Ira. Appreciate it.
See ya.
All right. Okay.